Now, is The Boys being hypocritical for having spin-offs even though the show itself makes fun of superhero franchises? I see this same comment everywhere, and I couldn't disagree more. Today we're going to dive into why I think this take is just straight up wrong. All that more in today's video. So with the announcement of VOT Rising, a small but loud corner of fans have been saying the same thing. Isn't it ironic that The Boys is mocking Marvel and DC for doing endless spin-offs and it's now doing its own spin-offs itself? Well, not in those exact words, but you get the gist. Honestly, I think that this is kind of a lazy take. We have to remember that The Boys universe is satire, and satire doesn't mean that you have to stay above the thing that you're satirizing. It just means that you're aware of the absurdities and quirks, and you can actually use those aspects to tell better stories. Here's the thing, The Boys was indeed mocking the existence of superhero universes and spin-offs, but it was also mocking how hollow and cynical those universes can become when they're built by committee or by shareholder demands or by corporate desperation to squeeze one more dollar out of characters that maybe should have rested a long time ago. In addition to politics and Hollywood culture in general, this idea has been so consistent through everything that this franchise has done that even the Twitter accounts and YouTube comments play into it. The Boys is satire, sure, but it's also a regular TV show on top of it, one that's pretty popular, so it should be allowed to tell its story in the same vein. Another thing worth pointing out at the base of this take is how a lot of people seem to misunderstand what satire actually is. Satire doesn't mean that you're standing on the outside throwing rocks at something that you dislike. It's not a strict vow to never participate in the thing that you're critiquing. What satire does is exaggerate and highlight truths about its subject, often by being a part of it. Because, like in comedy, the best way for you to truly make fun of something is to have the experience and knowledge in it. This can add deeper layers to any gags or jokes that you have. It shows that you have an understanding of how things work, and so that you can make fun of it more effectively. There's a reason why inside jokes usually hit the hardest. Think about it. When people say this take, I assume that they take what The Boys is saying directly at face value, and really at that point you're watching the show wrong. There's layers to the jokes. When The Boys makes fun of modern celebrity moments like the celebrity singing Imagine or Kylie Jenner's dumb Pepsi commercial, yeah, the joke is a little bit more direct. But when they tackle certain other topics like Cameron Coleman and VNN being Fox News stand-ins, or how The Deep is basically the modern trajectory of a post-canceled celebrity who's going down a really weird rabbit hole in an attempt to stay famous, that's when the joke gets layered. The Boys is mocking corporate superhero culture and really modern culture through good writing and great performances, because it wouldn't be a very good thing of satire if it didn't have anything to say. It's like saying political cartoons shouldn't exist because they're profiting off politics, or that South Park shouldn't sell merch because they joke about consumerism on their show. That's not how satire works. The critique doesn't erase the fact that you're also engaging with the form. It just means that you're holding up a mirror to it and saying, yes, this is what this is, and it's ridiculous, but we're also doing the same thing. Take Gen V for example. When it dropped, we all assumed that it would be filler, but the creatives made it a companion series instead. It actually mattered to the main story. Characters from The Boys showed up, the events directly tied into Season 4, and the aftermath is shaping up Season 5. Gen V proved that spin-offs can feel essential rather than optional. Can you say the same thing with some of Marvel spin-offs with characters that we're never really guaranteed to see again? And even Diabolical, the animated anthology, had its place. Yes, some of the episodes were goofy experiments or just kind of outright weird, especially Awkwafina's episode with the talking poop. Not really sure what happened there. But there were some good episodes, with Homelander's first mission and the one that directly adapted Garth Ennis' vision of the comics. So right now, The Boys isn't following the Marvel model of endlessly padding that, yes, to be fair to Marvel, they are moving away from. It's taking more from how Breaking Bad had its own spin-offs, with Better Call Saul and El Camino, projects that did expand the world in their own right, with Better Call Saul having connections to the main series but still having its own plot and unique characters that, if you erase Breaking Bad completely, still tells a pretty great complete story, and vice versa. Although in El Camino, that movie was really more of an epilogue to Breaking Bad in general, but damn if it didn't wrap up everything in a satisfying bow. It added to the overall world rather than watered it down. I don't think any of the fans of those shows were drawing comparisons to interconnected universes there. It was just a natural evolution of how the writers wanted to tell more interesting stories in that universe. Not a single thing that was made from that franchise was a miss. Yep, not a single thing. Nothing at all. Now, going back to Vought Rising, justifying this is interesting because it's set in the 1950s and going back to the origins of Vought, with Soldier Boy in his prime and Stormfront before as she was known as Liberty. It's an interesting angle for the boys to really explore, especially with the themes of how they tackle modern day issues. Just imagine what they could do with the issues that were festering beneath the post-World War II era, and that are sadly somewhat still relevant today. Remember, The Boys is ultimately a story about exposing the lies beneath powerful people and what kind of wicked stuff that they get up to when they're away from the public eye. Moving the timeline back lets them satirize America's golden age of propaganda and the Cold War, which is, in my opinion, pretty good fertile ground for telling a cool story, especially with this kind of world. Plus, let's be real, more Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy cannot hurt. He's really great in that role. And that's the difference. It's not just about pumping out more shows for the sake of it. If that was the case and The Boys was more MCU-ified, we would have already had a prequel Billy Butcher show, a show about the early days of the Seven, maybe focusing on the Deep, stuff that generally happens around the same timeline of the main show with characters that were already established. Marvel's approach has often been, here's another project to set up the next big team-up movie and next phase. The Boys' approach so far has been, here's another angle to show how rotten this world really is. But let's be honest here. If satire meant that you couldn't participate in the thing that you're mocking, half the greatest comedies wouldn't exist. The Simpsons parodied sitcoms while being one of the longest-running animated sitcoms ever. South Park makes fun of big, complicated ideas and events, but usually boils them down to crass jokes. Even Scream parodied horror tropes while still being a horror movie. You can poke fun at something and still use the form. That's how satire works. And if you really want an example of how satire can live inside the thing that it's mocking, just look at Deadpool. He's literally a Marvel character who spends half of his screen time poking fun at Marvel itself. He cracks jokes about the X-Men, about budget constraints, even about the actors playing the roles. That is legit the point of his character. That's why everyone goes to see his films. But no one says, well, Deadpool shouldn't exist because he's making fun of superhero movies while being one. In reality, a take like that would be ratioed into the Shadow Realm, but I know that someone has already said it. Some people on Twitter are really dumb. Deadpool works because he's inside the system. He's a part of the Marvel Universe while still calling out how ridiculous it all is, and fans love him for it. The same logic applies to The Boys. Just because it's satirizing superhero universes doesn't mean it can't build its own. And honestly, I feel like this is less about their perceived hypocrisy and more because of fan fatigue, because that's really what's underneath all these complaints. People have been tired with the endless stream of superhero content on tap since 2008, but that was manageable. It really just got worse in 2020 when Disney thought it was a good idea to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and more importantly, recoup its investment into Disney Plus. Let's not forget about that. Now, to be fair, with the recent changes that Marvel Studios and DC Studios have done, it looks like both are fully aware of the saturation of content. So they're taking a more controlled approach moving forward and, not approving every show that gets pitched and giving the VFX artists a freaking break. So when The Boys adds more projects, some people just lump them in with all the rest. But here's the truth. The Boys isn't making 20 shows. Right now, it's just the main series, Gen V, Diabolical, and now Vought Rising, and maybe The Boys Mexico. But there's still radio silence on that project. That's 5 shows in, let's say, 6 years since The Boys first aired in 2019. Compare that to when Marvel was putting out 4 movies and 4 shows in a single year during Phase 4, and it's not even close. At the end of the day, I get why people throw around the word irony, or ironic, or just calling it something a Twitter user would say because, again, some of them are not that smart. But I don't think that it lands here. If The Boys was pumping out 3 spin-offs a year with no real story behind them, sure, call it hypocrisy. But if each new series actually has something to say and still connects nicely to the mainline story, then it's just good storytelling. So yeah, The Boys is satirizing superhero universes while also expanding its own. And that's exactly the point. If the writers want to use the universe to tell their own interesting stories, then awesome. I'd love to have more good TV, just at a decent pace, please. I have so much to catch up on already. But that's all I have to say on that. Please leave us a like and a sub to the channel. Leave us a hashtag mailbag question for us to answer in a future video, and we'll see you guys next time.
It's been a whole year since my last movie, so I'd say we're due for a reboot.